Hello everybody, I hope you had a good weekend. It's kind of a rainy day out here today, but that's okay. Uh, so let's see. This week we're done with the with Zybook, and we're going straight ahead into BigQuery and Data Looker. What you're going to find from when as part of this transition is that everything that you learned about SQL and Zybook and the Zylabs and all that kind of stuff transfers directly over into BigQuery. Why? Because it's SQL. SQL is standardized. SQL is something that your grandparents used to work with, and you know it's still there and it still works. The one difference you'll notice, and it's a big one, but it's really trivial when you get down to it, is that the from clause where you're saying what table do you want to query this information from, that's the only thing that changes, and that changes to nothing more than a URL, because what you're doing is you're querying data that exists out on the internet. So of course you use a URL for that. So you know that's the big adjustment. Everything else is pretty straightforward. Now there's one other adjustment, and that's that the tables that you work with in BigQuery are set up as for analytics. They're not set up for transaction processing. So that means that the tables are generally speaking going to be wider. We're going to have a lot more rows built, or a lot more columns built into the tables that you work with. And you know the tables are going to be big because these are public data sets and everything. But the thing to watch when you work with BigQuery and the reason that BigQuery is so inexpensive to work with, should be free for you guys, is that the first thing BigQuery does is it chops off all the extra columns. So if you're running a query, you're probably only querying a few columns. Well, why would you want to carry those extra columns around with you? Why not chop those off right away? And that makes your queries a lot smaller and a lot easier for BigQuery to run. Now, BigQuery runs as a function as a service tool within the Google Cloud environment, and so nothing happens until you click your button, and then it organizes itself to run the query that you asked it to run. It's really a fascinating architecture, but the reason that you can do it for free is because it's such a low load thing for Google to do, and because there's no resources set aside for you while you're looking around and thinking about what you want to do. Those resources don't get allocated to your queries until you press the query button. Then it goes out and allocates the computing resources to respond to your request, does your request, and then releases those resources again. So it's a really neat application of this function as a service idea, where we don't leave resources tied to applications that aren't asking for them to do anything at the time. Instead, the resources are allocated when they're needed, they do their work, and then they're unallocated again. So yeah, it's cool stuff. The technology's cool. The interface is fine. It works just fine, and I think you're going to like it. But the first assignment that we're going to work, well, let me look through this thing first. So you've got your group, let's see, My Courses is all set for all the remaining assignments, including, all the remaining assignments. I almost talked about a presentation again, but you guys don't have those, so not to worry. You've got your group project proposal coming up on the 4th. That's your next deliverable. It's due, and I'll give you feedback on that right away. And then you've got your presentations on the 1st of May, and your BigQuery assignment is due on the 14th. You'll notice that there's some time in there between the BigQuery assignment and your project. that's time for you to work on your project. I'm a big believer in projects for you guys. It's the way you're going to live your lives, just doing project after project after project. But I understand that you need time to work on stuff. And so that's why I give you this time. So that's the way that works. Remember, we've got these BigQuery links out there for you to take a look at. There's a ton of stuff out there. And, the problem that I have is that there's so much that it's hard for you guys to absorb it all in such a short amount of time. Do the best that you can. Work toward completion. Think of yourself as a test-driven developer where you're doing stuff to try and get to a completion date and meet requirements for some sort of a project or another. That's a good way to think of what you're doing, and knowing that this is a lifelong thing. You could spend your whole life learning this new technology and you still wouldn't be done because it's really cool stuff. So your BigQuery assignment 1 is going to be using Google Analytics, and I think you're going to love Google Analytics. Now, why should you learn how to work with Google Analytics? Because it's all about e-commerce, and it doesn't matter what field you get into eventually or where you want to spend your career. At some point, somebody's going to ask you to do e-commerce analytics, and there's a vocabulary that goes with e-commerce analytics that you need to be conversant with to do things. And that's okay. And you should have some background in that as part of any analytics degree. And that's what you're getting here. So yeah, it's going to be neat. It's going to be fun. I think you'll enjoy it. Let's see, for the BigQuery assignment number 1, remember, I want you to do this. Take the results of your queries, export them to Data Looker, and create a dashboard with the results of your queries. Get used to that combination. You've got one tool, BigQuery, where you're going to run most of your queries. Then you're going to click one little button, export it to Data Looker, and then make it look nice. Well, in reality, you can do a bunch of queries in Data Looker also, but that combo is just a really useful idea to get used to, and I want you to get used to doing things in the form of dashboards. Dashboards are useful. It's what people do these days. Here are some of your assignments, and let's see. So, that bullet number 2, the real bounce rate. What the heck is bounce rate? That's an e-commerce phrase that you're going to have to figure out what it means. And what you'll see is that there's queries out there that in the BigQuery cookbook that show you how to calculate bounce rates. Well, by looking at the way that they're calculated, it's pretty easy to figure out what they actually mean. And that's what I want you to do. That's why you give this a try and see what you can come up with. Okay, so this is your BigQuery assignment number 1, and it's not due until the 14th, so we got some time. Here's your project proposal. Let's see. So this is how you're going to introduce your ideas and how to create the background information that you need to do this. Now, there's 2 really important reasons to do a proposal for a project for class. One, and the most important, is that you need to get used to this workflow. Proposal, getting feedback, modifying your proposal to include the feedback that you get, going out and doing the work, presenting your work, and then for your capstone project, you're going to have to write a report also. Well, for this class, you don't need to write the report, but you do need to do the presentation. So, the workflow itself is useful to get used to, which sounds kind of weird, but that's the way it came out. Now, on the bottom, that last bullet, if you want to do this as an Azure DevOps project, I love that. You can do that too. Now, I'm not sure, and it probably depends on the faculty member that you work with on your capstone project, whether they would allow you to use Azure DevOps for your capstone. That's a discussion that you can have with whoever it is that that you work with on your capstone project. If it's me, I would definitely say yes, but other people may not. It's totally up to them. They can say what they want. They don't have to work with you on this. The outline that I give you here for your proposal is a valid outline that you could use for your capstone project. Now, even this outline here of other faculty would have issues with. They would say, well, that's not the way I generally like to do things, so could you add this step? Could you organize it this way? Whatever. You're best off just doing what they say, and, because that's what you got to do. But anyhow, so this is the outline for your project proposal. You're going to have to write it by next week. Now, it's broken down into an outline that I think should work for you. You've got an introduction. What's the question you want to investigate? You're going to use these public data sets to ask questions. Well, what's the big question? What do you want to know about? And then why? Why? What's so important about this question that it makes it the one that you want to investigate for your class project? Now, the why part is really important because it kind of determines everything else. The way you phrase why you want to do this determines what you do. It determines what your lit review is, what other people have looked at in this area. And it informs your reader what it is that you want to do and how you're going to approach this. It's all kind of embedded in that why part. Now, the literature review, this is kind of background stuff. What do I need to understand so that I can relate well to your question? This is, what's the background? What got you to this point? What things have you seen, read, whatever it is? What are your interests? How do they all relate to the topic of your capstone project? Now, data sources. What data is available to help you with your question? And then I say that you should have something about the provenance of the data. Where did the data come from? Who maintains it? How do you know that it's reliable data? It could be just somebody's fever dream out in the fake news swamp. How do you know that this data is worth relying on? Because, the data determines everything. If the data is no good, well, you can't answer your questions. And then the next steps are really kind of linked together. So the methodology. How do you plan on doing what you plan to do? What are the steps? How are you going to organize things? Now, the thing is that since everything, your methodology is a series of steps, at the end of every step, the world has changed. Something's different. And that something different is the deliverable that comes out of that step. What do you expect to have different when you're done with that first step? What do you expect to have different when you're done with the second step? And so on and so forth. And then lastly, the project plan. Well, each step is going to take time. How long do you expect each step to take? Some steps are harder than other steps. Some steps are easier. Some steps pretty much exactly how they're going to go, but others you're not entirely sure. So you need to think about that and link all those different parts together. That gives you the plan of how you're going to do this, the methodology. What are you going to do? What's going to happen? What are the steps? How do they all fit together? That's why this works so well in Azure DevOps, because it's basically a tool that automates this kind of a thinking process. But anyhow, there's that. And then your project presentation, which we do on the 1st of May, is going to be a dashboard that's going to talk about what you want to have in here. Well, you know, you're going to do a presentation about this dashboard also. And what I want for you to do is to walk me through your dashboard, so that I really understand where you're headed on this. Because what you don't want to have me do is to look at your dashboard and say, I think the main point is this. That's yours to decide, not me. By having a presentation, you grab me by the lapels, shake me around, and say, these are the main points that I want you to get out of this presentation. And this is how I'm going to walk you through the dashboard. So that's what I want from you to do that. Let's see. So including title page, there should be a title on your dashboard, whether it's a page or not, I don't know, it doesn't matter, but there should be a title. There should be an outline that says, this is how I'm going to take you through my topic. There should be a short introduction. What's the main point here? Why are you doing this? And then any background information, the previous groups who have looked at this data have approached it from the perspective of, blah, blah, blah. Something about the data provenance. This data was gathered by the Center for Disease Control as part of their keeping track of the COVID pandemic. I just made that one up because I know at least one group is going to work with the COVID data. Probably more would be my guess. And then your dashboard discussion. What are the different queries? How do they work together? What are the results? What displays do you have to show me? What graphics? What different ways to look at the data? All that kind of stuff. And then finish it with some sort of future research based on what you learned. If you were to keep going, what direction would you take? To go on, okay? And then, just a tip, I think I talked about that last time, do the results make sense? Okay, that's good. So that's my announcements. Now let's get started with, so the first assignment that we have is about the Google Merch Store. So if you got a new job at Google, you'd want to get some swag, right? Everybody wants to wear their Google sweatshirts and their Google hats and their Google mouse and their Google, everything. And so, if you're a big company, if you're a small company, then just, give everybody, here's a t-shirt, I hope it fits, here's a coffee mug, here, whatever. But if you're a big company, that's just too much trouble. So if you're a big company like Google, you may decide to put together a website that has your merch on it. And so this is GoogleMerchandiseStore.com. I'm going to go to Canada, United States, and it's loading up. And so here's your Google merch. And you can get all kinds of stuff. You can let's see. All right, so we've got sizes. Let's see, and this is our apparel page. You can get all the T-shirts and beanies and speckled palm navy hat that you want. There's all different colors and sizes and big bulky T-shirts, and there's girl cut T-shirts, and there's all kinds of youth T-shirts and indigo onesies. How exciting! Toddler tees. Everything you can imagine is here, and you can look for all kinds of stuff. There's just tons of stuff. So here's this e-commerce website that's got a lot of stuff built into it, and it's real. You can buy stuff. $135 for a great puffer jacket. What the heck? Probably shows how much I know about how much clothes cost. But behind all this is the analytics information that we want to do. And so here it is. This is our Google Analytics sample data set. Now, the data that you're going to be querying comes off of that Google Merch Store page. And so here's the Google Merch. Here's our analytics sample data set for BigQuery. Now, it's a sample data set. It's made up for people to try things on. Now, if you were a Google employee responsible for the Google Merch Store, you would need to see the real data. But if we're just looking at a sample of the data and it's available for everybody, that's not going to happen. So the data that is in this data set is anonymized, but it gets you a lot of the levels of detail that you're interested in, and it's anonymized only to the point where you can't tell what individual patrons are purchasing. You can see that, can you see that it's the same person? Yeah, you can see that it's the same person that purchased 2 or 3 different things. You could look at their browsing history. You could do all of this different stuff. But what you can't do is track it down to who that person is. That's okay. What do we care? We don't want to know who's buying onesies and sweatshirts and stuff. What do we care about that for? So it's anonymized, but only at that level of detail. So it's still very useful to look at and interesting to work with. Now, we've got lots of different information on this guy. And here's, and like I said, there's just so much information in here that's going to be the hard part. But you can, it kind of walks you through this thing and helps you to get started in this. And, that's good. I have no problem with that. You should have a way to walk you through and get it started. So, first thing you're going to do is to click on this, console.cloud.google.com/BigQuery. Okay? And it's just loading it up. Now, the thing that you need to do is you're going to have a project. And before you can do anything in BigQuery, you have to set up a project. Now, you can see how creative I was in naming my project. You can be just as creative as I was, and you can see how they assign a equally creative, goofy name to it. But so you're going to have a project. You have to set that up, and new project, blah blah blah, really easy. But that's one thing that you have to have. Now, what you're going to be doing here is you're going to be looking at the Google Trends demo query. Let's daily time. Okay, yeah, all right. So this one is it's written in standard SQL. We've got a select query, refresh date as day. We know what that does. Term as top term. What are we doing? We're renaming our fields here, day and top term. And then we're going to have rank too. Rank is one of their fields. We didn't change it with an as statement. Then here's the URL part that I mentioned before. That's a URL. Now, it doesn't look quite like the URLs we're used to, mostly because we're running this from within Google's environment. We're not running this from my desktop out in South Wales, New York. No, we've got a connection into Google's data center, and we're running this query from within Google's data center. And that's what's going to make the difference for us. That's why the format that we see there is a little bit different. And then, where rank equals 1, blank, and refresh date, blah, 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 group by day, top turn rank, blah, blah, blah. Now, so this is a standard query that they've given me to do, and it says this query will process 550 megabytes. That's megabytes. And so, I've got several terabytes that I get to query for free. So my 550 megabytes is not going to do a darn thing. So here I'll click on my run and blah, blah, blah. And so here we go. So the top queries that we see in here is on the 25th was Reese Witherspoon. I don't know why she was so popular that day. John Wick 4, that's a new movie that's come out. Tornado Los Angeles, I don't know what that one's about. Donald Trump, yeah, we can imagine that one. And then Trump and Real Madrid. Mario Molina, I don't know who that is. So on and so forth. And these are the top terms that were queried in BigQuery. So kind of interesting. Now the other thing that we've got here is that we can change this around. If we wanted to, we could say as today instead of day, and let's see what I do that. Recognize name today. I think it's probably just because we're still in that query function. Whatever, but you can change this around to make your query do whatever you want it to do. Now, we also have access to the BigQuery stuff in here. And here's an editor. And if we wanted to find something here, we've got here's one for you. So here these are all our public data sets that are out there, and here's our Google Trends. That's what we're looking at, and top terms. Well, this represents the database itself, which is made up of several different tables. This is one of the tables, top terms. It's part of the Google Trends database. Just like Geo OpenStreetMap, we can have different tables within the Geo OpenStreetMap database. And this will open up for us in an editor set. So yeah, so here's our geocensus history. Let's see. History change sheets. Yeah, okay, here we go. So this one is a funny, it's a table. We can't see how much it has in there now, but we can, if we wanted to preview the data, we can look at this. And what this does is it just shows us some of the data. 1 through 50 rows of, what is that? It's 746 million rows in this data set, and we're looking at the first 50. Okay? But what I can tell you though is that, look at the names of these fields and stuff. Does it make sense to you right away? Can you look at that and say, oh, of course that means I can't. And not only because it's not my field, but it's just complicated stuff, and you expect that. Now, maybe in our top terms, here we've got the fields that exist in that table, and there's that. And then we can do a preview of the table, and here we've got, let's see, 43 million lines. I don't know if that's the total number of queries that happened in this time period? I don't know. And you know, we can see that we've got the first 50 rows here. Now, is it showing us all of the results? Most of the results. And so, you know, there's our data. Now, we don't know what all that data means unless we dig in a little bit. Now, if you went out to let's see, it would be Google Trends data set. And let's see, check what's trending. Data from Google Trends. So you could probably, you know, get more information. Oh, here's a better one. You could probably get more information about what those fields actually mean by looking in here. So, you know, even if you're not a genius who knows everything about all the data sets that are out there, I know I'm not, then you can find them out mostly just by Googling them. So, you know, it's not that complicated. Now, let's look at a couple other tabs I got here going here. And here's some more tabs. Now, you'll notice that Google Analytics 4 is coming along. And some of these links are for Google Analytics 3. Well, you know, we'll just have to deal with that. And you guys can figure it out as you go through. Here's information about the next generation of analytics, Google Analytics 4, and it sounds like it's kind of a big deal. Now, if you haven't seen this before, what Google Analytics does is that if you were an administrator for a website, pretty much anyone out there, there's a little chunk of code that you can download from these guys and then post it into your HTML, and every time a user looks at your page, it'll gather information and send it back to Google, or you can then look at the results of that information for your website on Google Analytics. And that's totally cool because it gives you access to the analytics data that Google has. I mean, did I say Satan? I meant to say Google, but I probably said Satan. Yeah, you know, that's the way it goes. And at least with Google Analytics, you as an analytics person gets a chance to see what the great Satan can actually gather about people using any database. Website. So anyhow, there's all that. And then when you come back to your project, you type in console.cloud.google.com, then you'll get to this page here and you can see all of the stuff that you have access to. And you know, remember, I have not upgraded this. This is the free version of everything. So, you know, you'll get access to it. Be kind of interesting. Anyhow, while you're getting started on here, dig around, start working on that Google assignment number 1. Start learning about how to work with this. Start thinking about your project. If you don't have a group, you know, there's not much that I can do about that except to say that you can work by yourself if you want. And of course, I'll know how big the groups are, and I'll expect more work from the bigger groups and less work from the smaller groups. So it's not going to impact you one way or another if you decide to be in a group of 1. That's fine. But on the other hand, it's going to be more fun if you can work with other people in your class. But I can't, you know, require everybody come to a, you know, cookies and capstone event on campus so that you can meet each other. So you're going to have to find your own group, and hopefully that'll work out for you. But anyhow, so start digging around in this. I think you're going to find it really interesting. Start checking out those data sets. Selecting your data set is not going to be easy. You're going to have to look at them start Googling around, start to dig into the provenance of the data, start figuring out what the fields actually mean. All of that stuff is not transparent. You're going to have to figure it out. So good luck, everybody. And sorry I went so long on this one, but we don't have the zybook to give you all your content anymore. So look at this stuff and enjoy what you're working on. So have a good day, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.